weird stuff.
It's like too much.
Wait, that's good yang nak sign off.
Kawan hari semua.
Good evening everyone. Sorry, good afternoon everyone. And welcome to the very first edition of Sunday Folke. We're very happy to have here with us Mr. Azmyl Yunor from Malaysia. He is a musician as well as an academic. So before we start the show proper, we're just going to maybe have a little bit of a talk with Azmyl about music, and specifically we're going to talk a bit on the weighty subject of Western influence on Asian folk music. And after that, Azmyl will of course serenade us with his brand of semi-political folk songs. Okay, so without further ado, let's start.
Alright.
What is folk music? What do you define folk music as?
It's quite interesting because I came down from conference and this girl from Singapore, from Indonesia. She wanted to organize this folk festival in Indonesia, and she asked me the same questions like, how do you define folk? And she put me in a spot and I said, yeah, I mean, in the sense that it's not about a sound or a particular instrument, but it's almost, I made a parallel with like punk lah, in the sense that, because I felt I'm a lot more punk than a lot of the guys with mohawks, because I mean, I can, you take away the power, blackout, I can still play, but you know, without, I also play punk band, and you need that, you need electricity, right? So, and like I was telling this girl, yeah, but I always felt that it's also an ethos. For me, I gotta get out. For me, that's the instinct, right? Because I always believe that, I mean, give us credit, like human beings, we're beyond all these borders, which is all human made. National borders, race, religion. For me, that's human made. Whatever your beliefs are. Because I think we're beyond that. So I always say in Malaysia, our leaders say we are this first, we are that first. I always say human first. So whatever you're born into, you never had a say into that, right? So I always believe in that sense. I'm a humanist lah, at the very sense. So movements are secondary to me lah.
Okay.
But solidarity is great lah. For me, that's the beauty about writing songs. It's a lot of the songs I don't really know. Sometimes songs tell me what it's about, you know. Most songs take a life on its own, and for me, that's what I find beauty about songwriting. I wouldn't say work hard, but I always like can't protect that to go beyond thought when it comes to songwriting. I don't want to think about this is what I'm gonna write about. That's when I know I'm not doing it right. The Malay songs also is quite interesting because English is more natural to me. I grew up, my parents were living abroad. English was natural first language. But Malay always seemed like a very tough language because there's very specific rules, right? You can't just do the whole William Barrow cut and paste with Malay language because then it will lose meaning. You know? And my wife brought this very close to me and she told me that she's way better in Malay. She's my editor lah. It doesn't make sense. What doesn't make sense? Then I go like, okay lah, I don't want to make sense, alright? You know, but I think that's very important. That's why I started writing Malay, because very sense that it was something unfamiliar to me. I love Malay songs. I always read Malay stuff, but I wasn't confident about writing Malay in Malay language. And I knew what I didn't want to write in Malay as. Now I know what I don't want to write, but I don't know what I really want. Sometimes that's an approach. I write that somewhere. Somebody say that. Sometimes you don't know what you want, but know what you don't want. That gives you some perspective of how to get to. So that's how I approach my Malay song. But then almost there was this sense of trying to reclaiming identity, making it your own, rather than sing Malay the way that was supposedly the way you should sing Malay. And you know, guys like Neo and Nick, they introduced me to Indonesian folk singers. Guys like Iwan Fals, those guys. And you hear how they use colloquial languages. And that's always been close to me. I felt like, yeah, how come nobody writes in the way you speak? You know, nobody speaks bahasa baku. You know, you watch drama, film, people speak baku. Kenapa kamu? That's how you speak. Yeah. For me, that was a very simple realization. Like, come people don't write? Because I notice in like English songs, people write the way you would speak. I didn't see that being reflected in the kind of music coming out, at least from Malaysia. And growing up, my dad was a big pop Yeye fan. All the bands from Singapore, A. Romsey Books, all the bands that came from here. It's like, you hear the songs, it's like, it's very colloquial in a sense, and it's also happy, it's like, and there's a certain sense of, I don't know, energy in the songs that was missing, that I felt when I was growing up listening to Malay songs. It wasn't there. So it's always me trying to connect with these things. And when I met guys like Mio and Nick telling me, it's like, yeah, they write Malay because it's a language they're the most comfortable with. I assume that lah. It's not so much marketability. Because if they were marketable, they wouldn't be doing the kind of songs they're doing. Because Mio came out in an article in one of the papers, he said like, I released a Malay album, the English press gives a good review. But my audience doesn't read English press. But the Malay press completely ignores about his work. So how do you connect that? Because the only appreciative audience are the writers in the English press. Whereas the Malay press are probably more busy about the next pop star, the most pretty girl, whatever lah, your typical gossipy stuff. So I think that was very important, meeting those guys. That really gave me a sense of perspective lah, like, okay, it's alright, stick to what you do. Wow, those guys they've been doing what they've been doing, man. And I think it's very encouraging. And of course, actually guys like Art Fazil, man, Constant Idealiste, growing up, they're like, wow, that's how Malaysia. And then you never hear that going on in KL. And that's where I started realizing like there's a lot more going on than what's on the radio. So I think that's when language, it's not just about language, it's an approach. Because you think differently especially we're all multilingual, right? All of us are. So, especially from this part of the world. So whether you think in English, you think Malay, those things will influence the way you write. So depending what you want lah. You want to unseat yourself from your comfort zone, then write something in the language that you don't think. So that's a good question, about the emotional language. I want to write a song in Iban, but my wife's Iban. So that'd be fun, man. One day I'll try that, man. Yeah.
Well, I guess we've come to the point of time where if anybody has a question to ask Azmyl, I know most of us in Singapore are quite shy.
Wow,
Amy?
good.
Can you talk a bit about your experience playing music outside Malaysia? And like when you go around, and then like in terms of like acceptance level, how are you being influenced or people being influenced by you when you're playing outside?
Outside. Well, people are mostly perplexed lah, most of the time. So, wow, from Malaysia's like this, or Malaysia is this. There's also language barrier. You're playing like places like Japan, Korea. And I went there a few times, had work, and I arranged shows. Because I realized, a friend was telling me, a big part of my show is my banter. It's not just a song. It's like what I say between the songs that matter apparently. Oh, okay. Because they buy the album, right? They buy the album, it's like, your CD doesn't do the same thing as going to your live show, man. The things you sing is like, oh yeah, it's true. So when I go like Korea, I cannot banter. I can say like a few Korean words lah. Like, then they're like, popular music as a form became popular because of pretty much market capitalism lah. Post-war America, that's when popular culture became a consumable form. People started because you can only have pop culture when you got disposable income. But if you're living hand to mouth, it becomes folk culture lah, stuff that you share in the family, maybe possibly. So popular culture, I mean, even like the definition of teenager is very 20th, 19th century category, right? Before that, people got married when they were 15, start family. There was no teenager category. But teenager has become such a big market segment, right? It's like, okay lah, terus become youth. Youth now open, right? Up to 40, you're youth. So you can consume. Because there's an age when you're consuming so many things, because there's a lot of uncertainty. You're looking for yourself, you're looking for identity, finding a place in the world. So definitely, I mean, like those boundaries, those colonial, whatever maybe definitions, still there. They're very strong. Like it or not, because of course the media perpetuates these things because the media has very specific purposes. But this is why I think people gotta be more media literate lah, to understand. Media operates that way because that why it's a media, that's how they are. You don't have to operate that way. Like the very fact like KL now they started this, for buskers they gotta have an audition. And people who audition these buskers are city hall people, not musicians. And it's got 3 fellas there sitting down apparently. Just like American Idol and these things. So that kind of destroys all the purpose of like have to audition for busking. And that's a very colonial framework, isn't it? 3 fellas there sit down, 1 asshole, 1 nice guy. Isn't it? The Simon Cowell, whatever lah, So, I think it's important to realize that these things exist. I think it's important to acknowledge that there are these colonial definitions or these market definitions. Because then you know the time and place where these things exist. And whether you want to be part of it, it's up to you. It's not right or wrong. But if you want to get into it, you got to know what you got to into it. You just got to be prepared. That's what I find disheartening. So people get into it and exploitation is very big, especially in music. Music is probably the only performing arts where there's just a lot of exploitation. Like play pubs, find out like guys will get paid, play 3 45-minute sets, get paid 150 ringgit. Fuck, kidding me? Because there's no union, there's no body that governs. And music's around you, right? It's ubiquitous. I think that's why people take music for granted. Whereas like film and theatre takes a lot of effort to do one show. But to write a song simple, like just guitar, ding, 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 ding. Oh, I got a song. Yeah, right, done. So I always felt like an album is a collection of plays, not just one play. Or film is a collection of short films. A song is a short film. Album is not a short film. Album is like the anthology of this. But it just seems so simple lah. I think that's the thing about songwriting lah. It seems so simple. I think humans have this fetish for hard work lah. Like, sounds so simple, but can't like that. No, don't deserve that much credit lah. You're a musician lah. Play Hotel California. You play Hotel California all the time. I was like, this song again lah. So, but that's very important. I think we got to realize that there is this framework that exists in this world. Whether you want to be part of it or not, it's completely up to you.
So, do you have any more questions?
Let play, man.
Talking not really.
Okay, if not, we'll take a short 5-minute break and then we'll start with the performance. Thank you very much for being such an attentive audience, and we'll see you in 5 minutes.
Alright.